Hey everybody, welcome to SLO City Church at Home. My name is Brent. This week we begin week 2 of our United Divided series. In a politically charged, politically divided world, we look to a different way forward as we walk through the ways and teachings of Jesus. We've created this unique online experience to help you and I connect to God and to connect to one another. So there's going to be a worship song, there's going to be a message, and then at the end of the message, there will be group questions created and meant for you to circle up with a group of friends and have a deepening discussion. As always, if you would like to give to the mission of SLO City Church, you can do so at slocity.church/give or on the SLO City Church mobile app. We're really excited that you chose to spend this time with us. We hope you enjoy the service.
I searched the world, but it couldn't fail me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. Then you came along and put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than you. And I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley. And there's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than you. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. And you turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than
Hey everybody, welcome to SLO City Church at home, online, or wherever you are. My name is Brent, and I am humbled to be one of the pastors here at SLO City. It's our hope to be a collection of people that lives the way of Jesus and brings hope to every single one. I just love the opportunity that we have to see and to meet real needs in our community. And because of your generosity, we were able to do that this past week. This past week, we were made aware of a single mom of 5 who, in the middle of COVID and pandemic and all of this change, has been navigating job loss, learning how to do distance learning, and it was just an increasingly weighty and difficult financial season and strain. And your gifts, your kindness met her in her need and lifted her up. So I just want to say thank you. It has always been our hope and our desire from the beginning of SLO City that we would never just talk about the ways of Jesus, never just talk about the teachings of Jesus, but would actually walk the ways of Jesus into real life, into real hearts, into real circumstances. And before SLO City ever launched, we dreamed of being a community of people who would be open-handed, who would be approachable and real and raw and aware of what was happening around us, and that we would be these people of intentionality and humility that were for everyone. You know, so much the church is known for what it's against, but we wanted to be known as a people that lived the way of Jesus, that were for every heart. And we fully believe that hope and change is possible when we run into Jesus. We believe that we can cross over dividing lines of socioeconomic standing and race and politics and all the things that seek to divide us. We can be a bridge in this season to bring real hope to real people. I was thinking back this past week to the beginnings of SLO City and the many different gatherings and things that we would do as a group of people who just wanted to see a church planted. I was thinking to the many Thursday nights we'd spend at the farmers market downtown. And I don't know about you, but I miss farmers. I miss the crowds. I miss the buzz. I miss the street performers who would climb up poles and blow fire. I miss the Lord of the Cello. Do you remember the Lord of the Cello? I loved meeting people in those moments when we would throw up a SLO City Church tent and have real conversations with real people. We had conversations with people who were skeptical, people who had different backgrounds of belief and faith, and who just wanted to know why someone would be starting a new church in SLO. And I remember, I'll never forget this one time. We had a group of people come up to us, and there was a young lady who was in this group of people, and she just had that look about her, this posture about her, that she had some more serious questions than just wanting to spin the spin wheel and get a gift card to a local business. And we start talking about the church, and we start talking about her experience with church and her history of faith and all these things. And her tone turned a little serious, and she looked at me and she said, "Okay, I have to ask you something." And I'm getting ready for some like deep theological question. I'm getting ready for like something on hell or angels or the end of the world, because people always want to know about hell, angels, and the end of the world. I'm waiting for some question on style of music or Calvinism, Arminianism, some deep theological issue. And she said, I'll never forget this. She said, "My boyfriend is a progressive. He's into politics, actually a member of the Progressive Party of SLO." And she like stops and has this long pause to look at my face, to read my face. And she said, "Would he be welcome to come to SLO City Church? Would he be welcome there?" And I smiled because I was kind of speechless for a moment. I was internally appalled. Not that she would ask that question, but that question had to be asked. That there is this thought and this idea that was presented to him and to her, whether right, wrong, or confused, but was and is present in the church today. And that is because a person votes a certain way or votes for a certain person or has a specific political leaning towards a party, that it either qualifies them for attendance, for being a part of the church, or disqualifies them from being a together people. It either qualifies them or disqualifies them. And I was appalled at that question because the question was, not the question, I was appalled that she had to ask the question because the question was, ultimately, is your church more tied to politics than to the person and the way of Jesus? What's stronger in your church? Politics or the way of Jesus? Am I welcome here if I'm a part of this party? Am I welcome here if I vote or lean this way? Am I welcome here if I think that this is the best way forward for our country or for our local government? And it just struck me with this thought. Shame on us. Shame on the church if we grow so deeply rooted in politics that we lose eyes for people and the way of Jesus. We're in a series entitled United Divided, where we are in the middle of a political season. We are in the midst of political tension and division, and it seems like everybody's united over their side and divided and across all of these lines, and we want to consider a different way forward, a Jesus way forward, because we believe this way is a better way than dividing lines of, am I welcome there? I can't go there because of this vote and because of this, because I'm on this side. We want to consider a different way. A few months ago, we shared about a man named Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Bonhoeffer was a German theologian and pastor and author who in the mid-1920s grew increasingly discouraged and disillusioned by the condition of the German Christian church. This church had grown deeply connected with the political powers and the systems of that day in Germany. And so Bonhoeffer put his heart and his hands to seeing a different way forward. He put his hands and his heart towards creating this new cultural movement that insisted on the way of Jesus and the fact that Jesus, not Hitler or the state, was head of the church. That the person of Jesus, not politics, should lead and direct the church. And he felt this need and this burden to start a small school, a small seminary of people, of men and women. And he taught the ways of Jesus there, and he raised them up to take the gospel, the good news of Jesus, more seriously. And he believed that Christians could stand firm against the pressures of the day, pursue Jesus in the midst of a culture of contempt. And this was controversial. As Hitler began to grow in power and in popularity in Germany. But on one occasion, a friend came to visit Dietrich at his school. And he had this conversation with him where he suggested, hey, Dietrich, maybe you should lighten up on your faith a little bit. Maybe you should maybe your faith has taken you a little too far. Maybe you should take it a little less seriously. Bonhoeffer quietly led him out on a boat. They rowed across the river together, and he led his friend to the top of a hill. And at the top of this hill, you could see the Bible college that they just came from, the school for preachers, on one side. And in the distance, you could see Nazi training camps. Fighter planes were landing and taking off. Soldiers were moving about in formation. And Dietrich began to explain how society, how the culture in that time had grown more attached to that movement, to this Nazi regime. And he talked about how in that time, even those who claimed to follow Jesus were beginning to be raised up, grown up, formed, and fashioned into a kingdom of hardness and cruelty. And on that hill, he shared his passions and desires to see people more deeply rooted to the teachings and the way of Jesus than to the growing empire and political movement of the day, that kingdom of cruelty. And then Bonhoeffer, who at this moment is roughly 30 years old, points to the school for preachers, points to the Bible college, and looks over at the Nazi camps. And in this prophetic moment, he says, this must be stronger than that. This way of Jesus has to grow stronger than that. This reliance and rootedness in faith must grow stronger than our rootedness and reliance on what we see at play around us. He says, you have to be stronger than these tormentors that you find everywhere today. What a powerful picture. This must be stronger than that. This way of relying on Jesus, trusting on Jesus, must be stronger than this way of relying on this culture and trusting in political powers to be our hope. Listen, again, we are in the midst of an intense political season with two sides, seemingly polar opposites, locally and nationally. And I'll say it again, this political season matters. Elections, both in our own city and around the nation, matter because there are real issues at play that affect real people. There are influences that bleed out of every election, and there are ripple effects felt economically and socially. And depending on which person from each party wins each election, there are real issues on abortion. There are real lines drawn on what to do with those trapped at the border, issues on health care and rights and entitlements and regulations, funding and bailouts, and how our nation relates to and interacts with the rest of the world. And it matters. And people are increasingly passionate about this political season, about who's in leadership and the policies and agenda that will pave a way for a better future. And people are saying, picking a side, saying, I believe this person, this party will pave a way for a better future for our kids, for our family, for the nation, for those less fortunate. And because all of this matters, there's a strength to this season. There's this pull to this season. Have you felt this? Have you sensed this strong pull to a deepening passion over politics? Or have you sensed this strong pull to pick a side in this deep-rooted partisanship? Have you sensed this growing strength behind your belief in who and what is the most moral or ethical choice, the best way, the right way forward? See, we're easily wrapped up in emotion. We are easily pulled into this strong feelings of this is right and this is wrong and this is best, and so I'm going to throw everything I have behind this, and I'm deeply rooted in this. But can I ask you, is this stronger than that? Is this stronger than that? Is the voice of Jesus stronger than the voice of opinions, politics, and presidential candidates? Is your identity more deeply rooted and connected to Jesus rather than a political party? Is this stronger than that? Is the way we practice our faith stronger than the way we practice our politics? Is the passion that we feel, is the passion that we live out, and the hope that we bring found and rooted in Jesus stronger than the passion to share my political opinion? Which one are you most willing to post about, this or that? Which one are you most willing to put in your yard, this or that? Is my faith in Jesus stronger than my faith in the Republican Party? Is my reliance on Jesus more deeply rooted and stronger than my alliance and my allegiance and my reliance on the Democratic Party? Does my faith drive my politics, or does politics distract me from my faith? See, it's important to be engaged, but it's dangerous when that grows stronger than this. This must grow stronger than that. I love what the AND campaign says. They say, we aren't against Christian participation in political parties, but we are against Christians placing their identities and faith in political parties. We are against replacing the compassion and conviction of the gospel with flawed political ideology, because this must be stronger than that. See, Jesus stepped into the world 2,000 years ago into a deeply divided environment. The division was strong on lines of race, gender, social standing, and politics, and people were desperate, believing, hoping and wanting to put their belief behind someone or something that they believed would bring a better world, that would improve their circumstances, that would better their family and their friends and the nation as a whole. And right into the middle of all of the mess, right into the middle of the division, Jesus walks to the top of a hill. The crowds have followed him. He's been healing them. He's been teaching powerfully, and he stands at the top of the hill, and he says, and he opens his mouth, and everybody's leaning in, and they're going, what's he going to say? Where's he going to lead us? And he says this. He suggests that your rootedness Your connectedness to God must be stronger than that. He says, so those of you who are poor and desperate, if you would bring your poverty of spirit and your desperation to God, I have a kingdom for you. He says to those of you who are grieved over the condition of your own soul and your own sin and the condition of the nation and the state around you, if you're grieved by that, bring your grief to the King and you will find comfort. He says, blessed are you when you act, when you have an attitude of humility, of meekness, of gentleness, of kindness, that you are patient and composed and have this strength under control. He said, because you will find life. And there's a way out of the division and the contempt, and it's the way of humility. And then he leans in Matthew chapter 5, verse 6 and 7, and he says, blessed are those of you who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. And blessed are you who are merciful, for you shall receive mercy. Blessed are you who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. Have you ever experienced hunger and thirst? A couple months ago, my wife and I celebrated our 16-year wedding anniversary. And so we thought we're going to have a morning hike that is going to be epic. She loaded up a backpack for me to carry that was about 70 pounds. It was full of fruit, muffins, yogurt, orange juice, and a big thermos of coffee. And I carried it up. And as we were heading up the mountain, we said, oh, no. High School Hill, 45-minute hike up, intense. We forgot water. Have you ever felt thirsty? Have you ever skipped several meals at the end of the day and you were just hungry? We all get this in a physical sense. And Jesus was teaching a group of people who knew what it meant to be hungry, who knew what it meant to be thirsty in a physical sense, because there was a deep sense of poverty. There was a real sense of economic poverty. People would travel for miles in the heat of the sun and they would experience like the feelings of hunger pains and the feelings of thirst physically, but they also understood this at an emotional, spiritual gut level. See, to hunger is to have a strong desire for. To thirst is to have a feeling of needing or wanting. And they, like you and I, had strong desires to feel differently. They had these strong wants within them. This strong sense of, I need something different from my life. I need to feel seen or to feel loved or to feel valued, respected. I have this strong desire. I have this strong longing for freedom from the oppression that we see in Rome and the division and injustice that we see all around us. I have this strong desire to provide for my family and see a way to hope in the midst of all the hopelessness and all the hatred. And Jesus says, blessed are you who are hungry and thirsty for. What are you hungry and thirsty for? What is it that you feel like you need right now? What do you have a strong desire for personally? What is it that you want and that you need to see culturally, politically, nationally? Is it for power? Is it for safety? Is it for comfort? Is it for an easier life? Is it for equality? Is it for healing, for happiness, for you, for your family, for your friends? What is it that you are hungry for? And what are you running to satisfy that hunger, to fill that hunger? See, the people listening to Jesus lean in when he says hungry and thirsty. They felt it both physically and emotionally and spiritually. And he says, when you are hungry and thirsty for righteousness. See, they had all of these expectations and they had all of this hope wrapped up in if we could just have a political leader, if we could even have a military movement where we march into Jerusalem and overthrow Rome, then everything would be great and everything would be fine. And so all of their hunger and all of their thirst was wrapped up in all of this anticipation for a political person, a political movement, a movement of Jesus. And so that when they see Jesus healing people, they're saying, maybe him. Maybe he will mount up this force and he will stomp on Jerusalem and he will make a way for everything to be better politically, militarily. But what I love about Jesus, he was informed politically. He was aware of these expectations. But Jesus takes the focus off of the political and zooms in on the personal. He says, blessed are you who are hungry and thirsty for righteousness. See, he's like, I get the political thing. I get it. And it's important and it matters. But I want to talk about your personal heart and what you are hungry for. What is it that you are hungry for at a personal, deep down level? Every individual heart. And he focuses on this personal responsibility of each person who is hearing him teach this incredible sermon. He says, blessed are those who desire, who want, who need, who hunger and thirst for righteousness. What is righteousness? What does he mean by righteousness? Biblically, righteousness is this idea with two parts. One, both are incredibly personal. One is internal and one is external. Righteousness was this idea or this condition of one being in a state or place as it ought to be. Someone who was put right with God, made right with God at a heart level. It's this idea of having a right relationship with God. We all know self-righteous people. We all know self-righteous people who claim they're right just how they are and they're God's gift to us. But righteousness had this idea of God has gifted us internally with this made right with him. I love what Eugene Peterson's paraphrase in 2 Corinthians 5:21. He says, in Jesus, God put the wrong on Jesus, put the wrong on him who never did anything wrong so that we could be put right with God. See, Jesus says, I want you to hunger for this personal righteousness, for this personal being put back together, made right with God. I want you to hunger. Blessed are you. God's favor is on you who hunger and thirst, who have this strong desire for this personal relationship and personal holiness, this personal connection with God. Somebody who hungers and thirsts for righteousness inside is someone who roots out a reliance on themselves, who digs down deep and has this roots out this reliance on their self and sin and seeks this right relationship with God. Righteousness looks like getting rid of those things in you that keep you from growing closer to Jesus and from looking like Jesus. It looks like receiving the ways of Jesus of integrity and prayer and purity and seeking the ways of worship and being in a place of being right with God personally. He takes the focus off of the political and he puts it right on the person. He says, are you hungry though for a personal level of holiness, righteousness, integrity, being made right with God? And he says, are you hungry for a righteousness that isn't just internal, but that is external, that pursues things around you as they ought to be? See, Jesus says, blessed are you who are hungry and are passionate and are taking personal responsibility for the broken things in you and around you. Blessed are you. God's favor is upon you who put your hands to pursuing works of righteousness, of putting broken things back together, of pursuing justice in you and around you. Does that make sense? Like to put the lens on each person, zoom in on each person and say, do you hunger and thirst for righteousness in you and around you? Are you doing the goodness of God in your own city, in your own community as a person? See, Jesus says this is what we should seek after first, a righteousness that roots up self and sin and seeks a right relationship with God, and a righteousness that pushes us out to take this personal responsibility to bring real hope to real people. Jesus says in Matthew 6, he says, seek first, hunger for this kingdom of God, this way of God, and his righteousness. And I'll take care of all the rest. But see, we have this tendency. We can easily fall into this trap of allowing our political attachments, our political angst and affiliations to excuse us from the personal call and the personal responsibility of Jesus to pursue righteousness in us and around us. Does that make sense? We can easily grow passionate about a party, a candidate, a campaign, or we can rally everyone together to vote for change and then point to that person, that policy, that president and say, now it's his job or her job to make a difference around me, and neglect to put our own hands and our own hearts to bring hope around us, to make a real difference around us. And again, government, systems, and structures, and politics, and elections matter. But Jesus says, your desire for personal righteousness, to do justice, must be stronger, must be greater than your reliance on politics, on the government to do it for you. We cannot expect a political party or candidate to set our hearts right. We cannot expect a political party or candidate to set the world right. We should vote biblically from our conscience, from our faith. That is our job, but it is the job of people with transformed hearts by Jesus. Hearts transformed by Jesus to live out this call, to reflect the love and truth of justice around us. See, we can't wash our hands after we vote and said, I did my part. Let him do the bringing of the right things around me. Let him bring the righteousness. Jesus invites us to this personal responsibility of being right with God internally and living out the right ways of God around us. I love what the AND campaign says. They say, as Christians, we have a duty to impact culture in a manner that reflects the truth and love of Jesus Christ. May the call to this personal responsibility to reflect the truth, the love, the mercy of Jesus grow stronger in us than this political affiliation, than this political reliance. May this calling be stronger than that. Can I ask you, is the way that you are handling yourself right now reflecting the truth and love and righteousness of Jesus? Or is it reflecting your deep-seated reliance and rootedness on somebody to do it for you? I'm not saying it doesn't matter. It matters. But Jesus presses in on you as a person, on me as a follower of Jesus, and says, don't sit around and wait for this. Bring hope around you now. He goes on to say, blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. And I love this idea of mercy. He says, this leads you to a life full of mercy, full of reflecting that God stepped into your circumstance in mercy, and he calls you to live out mercy. In Luke chapter 10, he tells a story about a good and righteous Samaritan. He says, a man was traveling on the road when he was suddenly attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, they beat him, and they went away, leaving him half dead. When a priest came walking that same direction, the priest saw the man and then made a choice, took the personal responsibility to pass by on the other side, to walk away. Then a Levite came. And when the Levite saw this man, Levite's this deeply religious person, he comes on the road and he sees this guy stripped, beaten, left for dead, and he saw him. And he had the personal choice. He made the personal decision to pass by, to not stop, to pass by on the other side of the road. But then a Samaritan walks up on this man who was left for dead, and when he saw him, the scripture says he was moved with mercy. He was moved with this ability to step right into the skin, feel the things he feels, be where this person was at, and he was moved with this mercy, and he took the personal responsibility to bandage his wounds. He picked him up. He didn't wait for somebody else. He didn't wait for this program or this person. He didn't wait for the priest to come back or the Levite to come back. He said, this is my personal responsibility to live out my faith. And he took him to the inn. He took care of him. The next day, he took money to the innkeeper and he said, look after him. Do whatever he needs. And when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense that you have twofold. And Jesus is telling this parable, telling this story. And he turns to the expert in the law and he says, which one of these do you think was a neighbor who loved God and loved this man who was broken and left for dead? And the expert replied, the one who had mercy on him. And Jesus said, go and live a life like that. Go and do likewise. You see, it's so easy for us to put our trust and our reliance and give away responsibility to make a better world. But the early church, the first church, was so wrapped up in the way of Jesus, so wrapped up in this internal righteousness that pushed them out to do righteousness and justice and mercy around them, that they didn't wait for any political change or any fall of any empire. They were actually, in fact, in the midst of much opposition and much persecution and much ridicule. But when they saw orphans left for dead in the streets, infants who were born with disabilities who were often left out to be exposed by the elements and just left for dead, they said, we're not okay with this. We want to see a better world, and so we're going to create a better world. We're going to create this culture, and we're going to bring these children in, and we're going to create orphan homes. We're going to find places and families for these kids to live. When they saw widows discarded after their husbands had passed away, widows were often taxed in that day, and they were brutalized. They were seen as a drag on the society. They said, we need to feed them, clothe them, like nurse their wounds, like bring them into a family, make them know that they have value and worth. That was followers of Jesus who said, we can't wait to see a better world. It starts for us now. We're taking the personal responsibility to care for orphans, to care for widows. It was followers of Jesus who said there are sick people, and it is our responsibility to live the way of Jesus. We see Jesus as like this walking healthcare machine, and it's like we're not going to wait on a government program to do this. We're going to help meet the needs. So they start hospitals. They start nursing those who are in the midst of epidemics and plagues and sicknesses. Followers of Jesus took the personal responsibility after running into Jesus to be made holy internally, righteous, and this put back together, standing with God, and then to put things back together culturally the way they saw God move. Caring for orphans and widows and the sick, those incarcerated, those in prison, those who had mounting debt. They responded with them in the ways of justice and mercy, and they lived the way of Jesus because they saw that this must be stronger than that. This way of righteousness, of knowing God and growing in Him and spending time with Him and being renewed and refined and restored by Him leads us to rescue and restore and redeem those around us. See, what happens internally has to move out. Our faith inside must be lived out. And they said we have to live out this love, this justice, this mercy. We have to reflect this truth. May we be the church. May we be the people, a collection of people that take on the attitude and servanthood of Jesus. And may our love for Jesus lead us. May the call to a deep heart-level righteousness grow us and push us out to take on the personal responsibility to do justice, to love our city, to do mercy, to step into the situation of people in our city. May we see this way of Jesus. This kingdom of God, may we seek this kingdom that is bigger than any kingdom, that has outlasted every other kingdom, and see that it must be stronger. This kingdom must be stronger in us than our allegiance and our citizenship in this kingdom. Jesus said, you're a citizen, you're a citizen of the kingdom of heaven, not of this world. Does that mean we can't be aware and look and seek change politically and vote on our beliefs and our convictions and our faith and desire that? Absolutely, but we cannot wash our hands of the personal call and responsibility to reflect the love and truth and grace of Jesus. May we, as Micah writes in the 6th chapter, may we pursue what is good. May we listen to what the Lord requires of us, to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God.